Hello and welcome back to Too Many Books, and today, my friends, I want to talk to you about The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim. No, you aren't seeing double. I actually have two editions I'll be showcasing in this video here. The first being the US Special Edition from Twisted Retreat, the other being the UK Special Edition from the Evernight box from Illumicrate. But I'll talk more about the details of each edition after I'm done talking about the novel itself. So anyways, The Eyes Are the Best Part falls into, I guess, a subgenre called eyeball horror, which is not something that I thought was a subgenre for a whole novel, but here we are. I personally don't like eyeball horror or eyeball stuff. I played Dead Space 2 many years ago, and there's some good old eyeball horror in that. That is the most nerve-wracking eyeball horror I've ever encountered. And then, there was some eyeball stuff in How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, and then there was an eyeball scene from The Spirit of Place by Jeffrey Thomas that I absolutely hated. That wasn't even supposed to be horror. I mean, it's a horror novel, but that eyeball scene wasn't even supposed to be horrific, but it freaked me out. But then we get to The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim, which is, here we go. Feminist psychological horror about the making of a female serial killer from a Korean-American perspective. There's a nice little blurb from the jacket here from Twisted Retreat. It's an entire novel built around the concept of eyeball horror, and it's all right. I mean, it's a valiant effort for a first novel for Monika Kim here. And I will say that, as far as first novels go, it's pretty decent. You can definitely see the potential that Monika Kim has. It'll be interesting to see where she goes from here as far as her writing ability and writing journey takes her. It wasn't quite a slam dunk, though, with The Eyes Are the Best Part. So the novel itself follows Ji-won. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not entirely sure about that. She is a second-generation Korean-American whose father, Appa, affectionately known as Appa, has just left Uma, as her mother is affectionately known. And, it kind of sends the family into a sense of disarray. And pretty soon, Ji-won finds herself dreaming about eyeballs. I should say the titular Eyes Are the Best Part is actually the first line spoken in the novel, told by Uma to the girls as she tries to get them to eat the eyes of a dead fish that they're about to have for dinner, because that eyeball is a delicacy. Ji-won finally decides to have an eyeball for herself after being completely disgusted by them for her entire life up to this point, and soon discovers that she absolutely loves it. And when Uma, the mother, starts dating George, who is just a downright horrible human being, very clearly into Uma for some sort of weird Asian Korean-American fetish thing that he has, Ji-won starts having dreams about, eating George's eyeball, his beautiful blue eyes, which are pictured front and center all over this edition, both of these editions. And, it's a slow descent into madness for Ji-won as she tries to balance her home life with her school life, dealing with Uma and her sister, and George being a downright creep, as well as her two new friends, Alexis and Jeffrey, at school. And it just slowly descends into madness from there as she starts getting more and more vivid dreams with these eyeballs. And, it becomes kind of apparent to you, the reader, that it won't be very long before she is making the leap from dreams to reality, a serial killer in the making, as, the Dust Jacket so lovingly pointed out. And, it sounds like an incredible concept. I enjoy the concept. I don't think it was fully executed as well as it could have been. I do not like eyeball stuff. I will tell you that first and foremost. I do not like eyeball stuff. But most of the eyeball stuff in this novel takes place within her dreams, within her nightmares. I mean, I will say that the final third of the book was definitely preferable to the first two-thirds. The first two-thirds are a very slow build, kind of going through her life, interacting with those around her, interacting with Jeffrey, interacting with George. And yeah, I mean, there wasn't enough tension in those first two-thirds. It's the same dream over and over again. I mean, yes, the wording changes, the situation of the dream changes, but I mean, when it all comes down to it, Monika Kim is just describing that same dream again and again and again. And it really isn't until the final third where she, starts to actually take more of a effort, more leaps and bounds to actually differentiate from the dreams that we have been exposed to time and time again. But unfortunately, that's not to say that the final third is perfect at all as well, because the final third, you have to suspend your disbelief so much in order to get by and make the end work. I mean, the end is definitely better than the first two-thirds. The final act is definitely where the novel shines. But even so, you have to turn off your brain in order to get full enjoyment out of that. There are actions and situations, I should say, that are just so unbelievable within that final act. And maybe it's like a descent into madness. Maybe it's like American Psycho, where you can't, I should say the film of American Psycho. I have not actually read Bret Easton Ellis's novel, but in the film you can't really tell between what is real and what is fantasy. Maybe that is kind of what you're experiencing here with Monika Kim's world. I mean, I will say Jeffrey and George are despicable characters. You want bad things to happen to both these characters. They're both creepy. They both have this sort of strange Asian fetish. But at the same time, you also don't feel bad for Ji-won because she is also a terrible character. I mean, I don't mean poorly written. I mean, like, the writing was decent. The writing was fine. It just, her actions are unlikable. I'm not rooting for her. Really, the only characters I felt myself kind of sympathizing with are Uma and her sister Ji-hyun. Just because they are kind of caught in the middle here. They are Ji-hyun, is trying to speak out, but she's a teenager. I think she's 15 in the novel, so there's only so much she can do. Uma is kind of blind to everything that's going on around her, and you kind of feel bad for Uma. But Ji-won, the actual protagonist, the actual main character, I don't feel bad for her. I mean, it's... Even before she starts to descend into madness, something's off with her. And I think it's purposefully off. I mean, I think Monika Kim did that on purpose. But it's kind of hard to, see somebody descend into madness when they're already unlikable from the get-go. I mean, the only other person I felt bad for in this was Alexis, her friend, just because, I mean, she's such a minor character, but she doesn't know what the hell's going on. She deserves better than, what is being bestowed upon her in this world. I get the feeling that Monika Kim was hurt by some blue-eyed man at some point, because, man, this novel, it kind of reads as almost like revenge fantasy in a way. I don't know if Monika Kim based any of these characters off anybody. I mean, I know she says she is a second-generation Korean-American living in Los Angeles. So, I mean, there are some parallels between the novel and real life. I don't know whether or not she's actually eating eyeballs out there, hopefully sticking to fish eyes and not human eyes. But I feel like there seems to be enough parallels between the characters or the circumstances of the characters. I can't help but think there were some blue-eyed gentlemen that broke Monika's heart or creeped her the hell out, and this is some sort of revenge fantasy for her, which, if that's the case, I'm all for it. Go for it. I know that this might read different to some other, to like female readers, that way who might connect more with kind of the feminine rage angle of it. I mean, me personally, it didn't connect with me, but I also think that is mostly due to Ji-won being an unlikable character. It's hard to root for her when she is quite frankly, gaslighting her friends and gaslighting those around her. But I'm going to kind of keep it there so as to not spoil anything. But if you want a bit of eyeball horror dealing with Asian protagonists or Asian American protagonists, I mean, you know, The Eye's the Best Part it's a decent read. I mean, it's not going to blow you away, but I mean, I wasn't disappointed that I read it, you know. However, I would more strongly recommend The Spirit of Place by Jeffrey Thomas, which is currently only available from Earthling Press as a signed limited edition, but it's a shorter novel. It's a novella. I actually have a full review on my channel, which I'll link below. That one actually deals with a sort of pseudo-fictional Vietnam, and the protagonist in that has one eyeball, and that also deals with her trying to balance work life and social life as she slowly descends into madness. But I think that succeeds more than The Eye's the Best Part for a number of reasons. One, it's being a shorter read, being a novella. Thomas isn't really retreading the same ground that Monika Kim does. As I mentioned earlier, you're getting the same dream of her eating eyeballs again and again and again. If you were to cut half of those dreams out, you'd be cutting off like 100 pages of this novel. Whereas Thomas, it's shorter, it's concise, and the horror and creepy descent into madness is more varied. You have a little bit of kind of ghostly horror, a little bit of eyeball horror, a little bit of back rooms horror. It's unsettling chapter after chapter in a way that The Eyes Are the Best Part didn't quite pull off. But seriously, I mean, they're both worth a read. I would just personally, of the two, having such parallels between them, would probably recommend The Spirit of Place over The Eyes Are the Best Part. Both of these editions in particular are fully sold out, but you can buy a trade edition of The Eyes Are the Best Part wherever books are sold, or you can go to the secondary market if you want a copy of the Twisted Retreat edition or the Evernight edition. Interesting enough, like looking at the two editions, I would say the artwork definitely excels more in the Evernight edition. Danlin Zhang did the artwork and absolutely kicked ass with it. Nadia Rausa did the end paper artwork here. Azura Arts did this sort of almost like a Italian giallo kind of artistic style here with the U.S. edition, which isn't bad. It's not as gruesome as the UK edition is. But interesting enough, I mean, you can see that the UK edition is a little bit smaller in terms of trim size, and yet they both have the same page count, and you can see just based on the quality of the paper that it manages to be a little bit thicker than the US edition, which is, you know, a little tidbit for you as well if you want to look at these in the secondary markets. But there you have it. There is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim. Like I said, it's a serviceable first novel. It'll be interesting to see where Kim goes from here. I certainly didn't hate the novel, although it wasn't my favorite read of the year. Although, hey, new year, so it's currently in my top 5 because I've only read a handful of books so far this year. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel here. I do at least one book review a week, but sometimes I do multiple book reviews a week, like I did this week, and like I think I'm going to do next week as well. I also have plenty of unboxing videos in between here and there, including monthly Twisted Retreat unboxings. I don't do Evernight anymore, but I have a lot of other small presses on the channel as well. So anyways, thank you very much for watching. Check out Twisted Retreat. Check out Monika Kim. More importantly, check out The Spirit of Place by Jeffrey Thomas, and we'll see you around next time.